All right, guys, we're back with episode number 45 of the HYPEWORKS podcast with myself, Alex.
Jay.
And today's guest, Mr. VanDee. Welcome to the pod, Cole.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Great. We've talked about you coming on for a while, and it's like when you're trying to organize like schedules and stuff like that. So it's great to finally have you on. And we were just talking there about the time zone. You're in the West Coast, and we're in Asia. So this is like a truly global pod, and it helps. Like we get a lot of different opinions, so it's really cool to get you on and talk about things. So yeah, we'll just dive in and just maybe have a little bit of an intro about yourself and kind of what you're working on.
Yeah, obviously my name's Cole. I've been in the marketing industry for almost a decade now. I started out as a copywriter. I was in sales before, so copy was a natural kind of progression for myself. Very early on, landed some really big clients. I wrote a handful of sales pages for Ty Lopez, went on to write some stuff for Tim Sykes, and it just kind of spiraled from there, where I started mainly working with companies doing at least 10 million a year or so and handling any of their copy, emails, landing pages, ads. Didn't really matter for me. I shut all of that down in 2019 and decided to take a different approach to business. Spent a year and a half working mostly on launches. So I helped, I don't know, probably 9 or 10 companies go from 0 to $1 million or so in launch revenue with new offers, new ideas going to the marketplace. Obviously, these guys already had followings and all that fun stuff, so it wasn't like we magically made money fall from the sky. But so I focused on that and then moved into email in 2021 when I just got a phone call from a good friend of mine who was kind of repositioning his company, and the last piece of the puzzle he needed to hand off was email. And I was able to help them scale that list substantially we were pulling about $1.5 million a month just out of the list. And so I was just like, I should probably just do this. So I've been doing email ever since. That's my origin story.
How long has that been, the email game?
What's that?
How long has the specifically email game been?
How long have I been doing the email stuff?
Just email, though.
Yeah, just 2021. So it would have been like May or June of 2021.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, Cole, because like a lot of people, when they think about marketing, they think email is like the most old school, like it's the oldest part of the stack, right? And you've kind of come full circle. You started on the more kind of modern stuff and like in terms of recent developments, but now you're back to basics in your email. Is there something about email that's kind of like you think's really special in terms of like marketing? Like, why is it so relevant today, especially in this like era?
Yeah, and I want to be very clear. It's like ever evolving as well, and how you approach it. But for me, what I found was this massive gap between companies wanting to acquire more customers at a lower cost and then the resources they had to be able to make that happen. And so constantly, if you're paying for traffic, you're generating a ton of leads, and then you're hoping the funnel converts. So a lot of the CRO, almost all the CRO efforts are happening on landing pages, on creatives on the front end, on VSLs, on webinars, on book a call funnel. Like it's all funnel oriented. And I hadn't heard anybody talk about email as a part of this ecosystem. It's just kind of taken for granted. And so I was playing with the thought of, well, what if I could double the open rates in the the front end customer acquisition funnel part of this thing? Can that help increase revenue? And it did. And I was like, well, what if we built a better strategy to nurture these leads? And I just kept going down this rabbit hole of like, how can I make this the best thing ever? And we've been able to generate a ton of revenue for companies. The hardest part on my side of the coin is helping communicate like how important email is, because everyone's so focused on acquiring customers and they don't even consider the asset of leads basically that they've generated and spent so much money on. Like when you're talking about an 8-figure company, they're spending, $30,000 a day, $50,000 a day in ads. It's crazy to see all that money just kind of go to waste and not even try to really do anything to nurture and resell those leads on on the original offer again.
Yeah, that makes sense. And is that like a case of the like, because it's like the shiny object syndrome, right? Like people see social, and then they see like algorithm like based social like TikTok, and they always want to jump to the new shiny thing. So you're kind of thinking, your kind of contrarian bet is no one's looking at email, and like the market is kind of untapped or underserved.
Yeah, I think now, when I first got started in it, the market was, I think, pretty untapped. There was a handful of guys that were doing email at a very high level, and they had spun off basically from Agora when Agora started kind of dwindling down. And so they went on, and they're working mostly with, 50 to $100 million a year info companies. And then so that left the rest of the marketplace kind of open, where it's severely underserved. And then, there's been a couple guys that have biz opt this whole email list management thing, which has been great because all these people are going out and annoying everybody in the market about how much they need email and getting them to look at it. And then they're not really following through with any kind of tangible results. So it makes it a lot easier to kind of scoop up clients in that regard. But yeah, it's severely underserved. No one's really looking at it from a really in-depth perspective. If you took like a really, really, really trained media buyer, and you put them in a new ad account, they'll be able to pinpoint all the KPIs to determine what needs to happen in the account. You take most email list managers and you put them in an email account, they have no idea what to do or why. And so I think that's where the biggest gap is when it comes to email is, what do you do when the open rates are low? What do you do when click rates are low? What do you do when EPCs are low? What do you do when deliverability sucks? How do you change that? And I think that question is what people aren't asking. And it's just because most of the incredibly talented people in the marketing space are doing other things besides email.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. I was going to say though, because there's a few different ways to do it now. What do you think about volume versus the quality of the content writing? Because it's a big debate, because there are tools now, Instantly, Clay, Apollo, that make it very accessible to do mass email communication. So, how, you can set these tools up to do mass. What do you think the balance is between that copywriting really being nailed down to the ICP versus just, is there a strategy? Do you start broader? Do you narrow down what works? How do you do it?
Sure. Yeah. So just a very clear clarification between what we do and I think the question that you're asking. What we do is warm email communication. So leads that are opting in. What I believe you're asking is, what do you do for cold outreach?
Yeah.
And so I have a couple of friends of mine that they run their companies based off of cold outreach as their traffic. It's 100% of their traffic source. One of them, he basically helps Fortune 500 C-suite executives publish books and start a speaking career. So it's 100% cold email for them. They were doing about 200,000 a month, pretty consistently for the first couple of years of business. And this year, I mean, he's on track right now, I think this month, to hit about 500,000. And then next month, he thinks he's going to kind of plateau out at 600,000. He's going to continue to scale that up. His goal is about 850,000 a month in revenue for the company. And they do 100% cold email. And so on any given, like every couple of days, they're doing pure volume, obviously, to do those kinds of numbers. And then in addition to that, every couple of days, they're testing between 15 and 20 different variations of that cold outreach message, to see which is going to work the best. So they're still taking very much a media buying approach to the cold email, as far as like swapping creative, testing creative, holding standards and baselines, if you will, and then trying to optimize from there for replies mostly, and click-throughs to schedule calls and stuff like that. And on the warm side as well, just to round that out, consistency and volume is more important than the quality of the message, which sounds weird. The message still needs to land, but daily mail is incredibly important. And then making an offer, not every day, but when you do make an offer, making sure that you've earned the right to make that offer by giving them value, nurture, actually helping them, which is a weird thought, I think, in direct response marketing, but like actually helping people with your content is incredibly important.
Oh, brilliant answer. Brilliant answers. You know, I think about these things a lot. I've also got some projects where, you know, these clients have both cold and warm leads that need to be hit up. I am not responsible for the messaging. That's not what I do. So the actual business is responsible for the messaging. So I always think about the differentiation in terms of, like, you know, taking people out of a CRM system versus a cold outreach. Hey, we've not, you know, different approach really. So yeah.
Yeah, it's different. The intention of the audience is different, right? If they're cold, they're not intending to talk to you, and if they're warm, they're intending for you to help them.
Yeah.
I think those are the two differentiators between cold and warm.
I mean, I've also noticed that within the between cold and warm spaces, the sort of business models, like warm generally from the agencies that I know anyway, charge cost per lead or delivery, whereas in cold it's usually like a retainer that you pay like a fixed fee every month.
Yeah,
For
I've
volume.
noticed that. I've also noticed pay per booked call, pay per sale.
Right.
I've seen commission based as well. I think it really depends on the agency and the confidence they have in the results that they're delivering.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's going through a very interesting phase, especially with all these new tools like you had mentioned with cold outreach. There's a lot of new, like, really awesome tools that make it really easy. I just started using an AI agent personally for my personal brand to help me start reaching out to speak at more stages and book corporate consulting and trainings and
Yeah.
stuff like that to bigger companies. And it drafts the emails. I read them. They look great. I just send it. And it's been super, super helpful and incredibly easy to use. So I think we're stepping into a new wave of what
I
marketing and email
agree.
is going to look like.
Yeah, we built this tool for somebody who lives in New York, and they have a marketing solution that they pitch to venture capital backed startups. And what our tool, well, it's not a tool. We built an AI system for them, an automated like system. And what it does is you join a webinar. We've got your email. It could be a personal one. We enrich it. We know your website. We know your LinkedIn profile. We send an agent to your website, to your LinkedIn profile, and to do company research, and then we hyper personalize the email to somebody. Now that's expensive. It's not as cheap as Clay because we're using larger language models to do the
Mhm.
research on the person, but the response rate is really high. So I completely agree on we're in this new era, but in this new era, I think one, how the agents are set up in their automated sequence, and also how they're fine tuned, also massively impact the results.
Yeah, I would agree completely.
What do you have your agent living on?
What's that?
What platform does your agent live on?
No idea. I just found a buddy of mine, Clinton Senkow. He's from, he owned Influensive, him and Brian Dixon. They launched that together a long time ago. And then Brian went on to consult a lot of bigger companies. He found this venture backed agent platform called Marbleism. And so I haven't been on it for too long. I've only been on it this week. But so far it's been pretty awesome. And I'm behind when it comes to AI agents. I haven't really dabbled in it. I'm not a huge AI guy. Um, I use it to help me think. I use it to help me kind of flesh out ideas. Things like that. But I haven't really dove into, like, how can this really maximize everything that we do. And the reason that I've done it this way is because, like, friends of mine that own AI companies where they consult Fortune 500 companies on how to implement AI and how they can replace employees and how they can remove entire departments and all that fun stuff. I've gone to them with, like, hey, this is everything we do in the agency. How can we get an LLM or an AI to help, like, take all of this off of our plate and we can just push buttons? And they look at the entire web of everything that we do and they're like, we have no clue how to do that yet.
I could help.
It's it's getting there, which I think is great. And it'll be close. It'll probably happen in the next 3 to 6 months where it'll be more of a push button. I won't be as needed anymore, if you will.
Yeah,
And
I was just going
so
to
I'm
ask you a
excited for
question, Cole, about like the warm part. Like, what's the biggest bottleneck for you right now in terms of what you do?
that. At scale, the biggest bottleneck is just having writers,
Writers.
which is solved with AI at this
Hmm.
stage. When I was scaling up and bringing on a lot of clients at the end of last year, writers was the biggest bottleneck, um, and so I was just able to put writers in place. I had SOPs and systems and processes and structures and everything for them to follow, just like if they used a template in LLM or something. But now Claude has definitely improved tremendously when it comes to writing copy, and even GPT has as well. So I think that problem is solved there. The next problem is uh, making decisions based off of the data, and that right now that falls on me, and it's very fast. So like at that standpoint, I could handle 40 to 50 clients in that regard, just because I can just see the data and make that decision. But I would only be making those decisions. So I think that's the next evolution of replacing myself with AI or AI tools is that.
So like train a model on yourself basically, and then
Yeah.
take yourself out
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
loop. Yeah.
It's all pattern recognition and being able to tie the data to specific parts of the email. So I've spoken on stages and taught at masterminds about the email algorithm model. We break the email down into 4 different parts, and then based off of the data that email generates, delivery, open rates, click through rate, earnings per click, unsubscribe, spam complaints. We can then tie it back to a specific sentence in the email itself. Then we'll optimize that sentence for the next round, and then just continue that process, which is why we're able to, pretty much engineer 60 to 70% open rates on, at this point, we've sent 500 million emails, and still scaling. And it doesn't matter what list, what industry, what reputation you have, if it's a face, if it's a brand, it doesn't matter. It's just we've just been able to tie all the data back to all the words, and do it that way. So training an LLM on that right now is complicated, but I'm working on it in the back end. It's just not quite 100% there yet, but it's getting very close. So I'm excited.
We're going to it might be early for this one, but where do I get an email for you? Where can I get one of your emails? I need to follow.
I am the absolute worst at managing my own email list. I think all marketers, maybe not all, but most marketers are terrible at doing the thing that they do for clients for themselves. So I have an email list. You can go to just my personal brand website, VanDee.com, and opt in somewhere on there for the newsletter. And you'll get some emails, but it's not to the level that it needs to be yet.
Yeah.
I'm working on that part of the
Let's
equation.
switch tracks there. You made a good point, Cole. Actually, we're talking about the business of like running an agency and this day and age. I see a lot of chat right now online about like how the big agencies are really slow. We all work with the big agencies, and they do feel very backward in many ways the way they operate. What's your perspective on like the future of like running an agency? Could be marketing, could be SEO, social, email, whatever.
I, there's a few thoughts that I have, and they're not fully formed, but I'll share them anyways, at risk of being wrong in the future. I really think that this space of like serving businesses, for example, is going to change so much from the standpoint of where most people are no longer going to have a job in that space. It's going to be completely different. Company, it would not surprise me if it hasn't happened already. I haven't really looked, but there should be no reason that a company that has at least 3 employees doesn't have a job posting right now for an AI engineer that they pay 60 grand a year, to come into the company, and their only job is to implement AI every single day, to automate all of the processes, to make redundant all of the tasks, and to basically force the core employee group to level up into C-suite execs. I don't know why companies haven't or aren't doing that at massive scale yet, but I think that's the best use of their time. I think like marketing is going to be probably one of the easiest things for most small businesses doing less than, 50 million a year, 30 million a year. I think most businesses will be able to get by with whatever Zuck is trying to do with meta ads, for example, where it's going to be all AI based. YouTube's already started the process. Google's already started the process. I think X is going to start that process if they haven't already. TikTok, from my understanding, I'm not a media buyer, but from my understanding, not the best quality leads, anyways. And so I think it's just going to change. It's going to be like everyone, like the mass market. If we look at a total addressable market, it's a pyramid, right? At the top is the most, the biggest companies doing the biggest amount of revenue, have the most amount of resources. In the middle is the mediocre, like doing really well, have profit, but aren't super big. And then the biggest piece of that pyramid is like the mass market. This is everyone 0 to, 50,000 a month, 40,000 a month. And serving all of those people, I think, is going to go away very soon. There's no reason that they need to pay a $3,000 a month retainer to a marketing agency and then a $1,500 a month retainer to a creative agency and a $500 a month contract to an SEO. Like all that's going to get replaced with agents, AI, and all that stuff. So I think a mass amount of agencies and service providers are going to probably see a significant change in who they're serving. And if you're not serving higher end clientele, it's going to be hard over the next probably 6 to 12 months to find clients. There's obviously going to be pockets where they're like, I'm not using that stuff. And that's fine. But I've seen so many baby boomers where I go into a brick and mortar business. And it's an older guy, maybe in his 60s. He's sitting there on a laptop. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm playing with Chat GPT. Check this out. And he like shows me a duck he made with Dolly or something like that. It's like they're starting to adopt it. The older generations are starting to adopt it. I think they're finding it more fun, and realizing how simple it is to use. And so I think I think that argument of, well, the older people are still going to want human to human connection, maybe, but I don't think most of them.
So I have a question, right? So basically, I think we all agree on that. But my thinking is, most of these big agencies are still like on the billable hours model, right? Like that's how they make their big money. They bill these big blue chip agencies. They bill hellish lot of hours, and that's it. So how does the model change them in terms of like the business and the revenue? Where does that come from?
The bigger agencies that are serving the bigger companies, I think it's going to be up to the bigger companies to make that change.
I think they outsource too much anyway. These big agencies outsource all the time to small, more efficient, more effective white label service provider.
Yeah.
Do you think? I would agree with that. Do you think a lot of the like what you're talking about? We talked about you can train a model. Could your service be productized? Is that something you're looking at, or do you think that's a viable path for many agency people?
Yeah, I mean the whole I shared this right before we went live, but for when I started the doing the email stuff, and I was planning on building a full copywriting agency, and I called it the Copy Agency. I was like, this is great branding. Everybody will come to us for copy. This will be great. We'll evolve into it from email. And as I kind of charted the path, I was like, nope, email is going to be the thing. I'm just going to do email. And then as I've had so many conversations with good friends of mine that have launched and sold software companies and productized basically their services and service-based businesses over the years, realized, like maybe I should change this. And that's why we changed to inboxing engine. So now like the idea is that we'd like to turn this into more or less consulting as a service or consulting as a software, where it sits on top of whatever ESP you use. So GetResponse, Aweber, Maripost, GHL, whatever, it doesn't matter. It just simply plugs in, and then it then tells you exactly what, hey, based on the last 3 emails, this is the email that you should write. Based on, your delivery rate, you're not inboxing as well. These are the adjustments you need to make to your send volume or your send times or who you're sending to, when you're sending to them, stuff like that. And completely remove me out of the entire process and take our fees from, 10 to 30,000 a month down to, $300 to $500 a month, because it's a software. And so that's the direction we're charting down. When it's going to happen and how, I don't know yet. So right now we're still manually pushing all the buttons and doing all the things and jumping on the meetings, but that's the plan. And if you're a copywriter, then yeah, you should turn all of your copy into a copywriting structure and a tone and a voice and a style. And you should definitely make that easily accessible for everyone else, because you can get way more clients, way more customers at a smaller price and do way less work at the same time. Same for media buyers, same for SEO agencies, same for YouTube marketing agencies, video editors, all that fun stuff. Like how can you leverage tools like CapCut and everything else to bring your products, your services basically to the marketplace cheaper with a more consistent result? I think that has to be the path.
I agree. Alex, it's time, isn't it? It's the big one. Well, Cole, this is the final question, but not the last time we'll see you. We'll get you on in 6 months and have a catch up, see how you're doing. But it's the question that comes out of the blue, stuns everybody every week. But it's future predictions. It could be anything. It could be your life. It could be work. I mean, we've just had a good spate of that. But what's for the future? Future predictions, anything.
I feel like this question is challenging because it's so broad, right? So it makes me think. Yeah, let me think for a second.
Take your time. Could be anything.
Yeah, I think
usually our guests give like a on topic one, and then they choose a random one. So
yeah, no, I think I mean, I've shared a lot about the future, I think, of email, right? Like if I'm still pushing buttons and writing emails, or my team is, in 9 months, then we'll probably be out of business in 2026. That's a prediction there. And we produce some of the biggest results in the world when it comes to email. Wow. And so that's that prediction for on topic. I think off topic, more personally for me, and maybe with the risk of this sounding like I'm better than, right? So that's not the intention. But for me, like, I never intended to be in the internet marketing world. I was in sales. I remember this was 10 years ago. This guy Elijah in my hometown was running hyper local Facebook ads to get people to meet up for this like entrepreneur meetup, and I didn't know any entrepreneurs at the time. I was just a sales guy, and so I showed up, met him, and then learned how he was making money. He was running Google traffic, Google AdWords stuff to get people to sign up to be an Uber driver as an affiliate, and he was making like 80 grand a year. Oof. I was like, you can make money on the internet. So that's how I got started in it. Like, I wasn't seeking it out. I didn't like see a course or anything like that. It was just like this meetup. And so I've been in like really in the trenches of internet marketing, where, working with all the clients, doing all the stuff, producing hundreds of millions of dollars, being on a lot of big launches, all that fun stuff. And I'm like, just like, there's a handful of people in the industry where it's like, I really love what you're doing and you're helping a lot of people. But for me, I'm looking at like, how can I build something more tangible? And so I don't know what that future, if I had to throw a prediction out there, like I'll definitely be launching some sort of physical product, and it won't be a supplement. But it might be a beverage company. It might be a fashion brand. It might be a shoe company. I don't know. But I've been really playing with the idea of bringing like a physical product to the world, and using all my direct response marketing experience, and then also my exposure to big brand marketing stuff as well, to the world. But just like actually solving like a really awesome problem, putting my name on something that's tangible and lives out in the world, and creating at a significantly larger scale than just generating cash for people.
Wow.
So
we gotta end there. That was phenomenal. Something that actually makes a difference. Most people just go AI. We've come back into it. Let's make a difference in the real world.
Yeah, that's kind of contrarian, but it's cool.
Amazing. It's been heavy on my heart for the last probably 4 or 5 months, where I'm like, man, why am why these email things? Like, I'm just making rich people more rich is basically my thought. And I like to think that I'm helping customers get solutions to their problems as well. But at the end of the day, it's just like, they're paying me a lot of money so that way they make even more money. And it's like this fun little game. But I'm thinking of like myself at like 50 or 60, like, am I still going to be doing email? And the answer to that question is no.
Jake, will we still be doing this pod when we're 50? That's what we need to ask ourselves.
100%. We won't have a job, so
yeah, we'll be full-time podcasters. All right, good to talk, Cole. And yeah, Jake said let's get you back on next year and see where you're at.
Sounds great. Thank you guys so much.
All right, guys, take care. That was good. Cheers. See ya.